You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel. And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as tonight your Indiana Hoosiers hang on against Eastern Michigan 68-62 in a game that, well, it was better than Archie's debut. It was certainly a game that, it looked like Indiana was in firm control when they jumped out 10-0, and there was a little lull in the first half, but they kind of seemed to get things going there at the end of the first half, and then jumped out again, had a nice run at the start of the second half, but then another lull, and the lull just kind of never ended. As Eastern Michigan started making shots and clawing their way back. At one point, I know it was a 27-12 run by Eastern Michigan, but then down the stretch, Xavier Johnson was able to, make a couple plays. Race Thompson and Trace Jackson-Davis connected on a couple of buckets, and ultimately Indiana was able to hang on 68-62. So, there's going to be a lot to nitpick in this game. First time out with a bunch of new players, a new coach. I think we're all probably a little bit disappointed that it wasn't a bigger margin, given how good or not good we expect Eastern Michigan to be. But at the end of the day, the Mike Woodson era begins with a victory. That is the most important thing, and we were able to achieve that. I'm your host, Jared Morris. I'm here with Coach Brian Tonsoni and the coach, Jeff Marlowe. We're going to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU postgame show. And let's start the show the way that we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And for our banner moment, I'm going to go back to when things looked a little bit better. They're kind of early in the second half, around the 14:30 mark. There was a stretch that was just an absolutely incredible sequence by Trace Jackson-Davis, Indiana's All-American, who was, of course, their best player tonight. For a brief moment, it looked like Eastern Michigan was going to have a nice wide-open layup off of a nice little back cut, and Trace Jackson-Davis came out of nowhere for an excellent block shot, just erased that opportunity for Eastern Michigan. And the momentum of the block shot actually took him under the basket. And so it kind of looked like he would probably be out of the offensive play as Xavier Johnson got the ball and pushed it. But then, once again, out of nowhere, Trace Jackson-Davis comes sprinting down. Xavier Johnson sees him, throws an oop. Trace connects on it. My thought, as he's in the air connecting on the dunk, is simply, oh, don't get hurt, don't get hurt. But he made the play. It was an incredible feat of not just athleticism from Trace Jackson-Davis, but hustle. And this is what Indiana was doing when they were playing well tonight, is getting out in transition, running, playing hard, playing with energy. And when you contrast that with what happened for really about the next 12, 13 minutes of this game, it was a stark difference. But that play, that sequence really showed us, I think, kind of what this new Mike Woodson era is going to look like. Guys flying around, playing active, pushing the ball, making plays. We just didn't quite see it enough tonight, but for that sequence, it was really spectacular. A really nice play by Trace, a great find by Xavier Johnson. And it was really the high point because it was kind of all downhill from there in the second half, but that was a terrific play. Okay, our banner moment, as always, brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 5th season of sponsoring the Assembly Call, and their first as our presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. And in case you missed it, Home Field recently did a brand refresh where they added 3 new items to bring their extensive IU collection to now more than 40 items. So what did they add? Well, they added a shirt commemorating the 1987 National Championship season, a brand new Bison design, and a new oval design as well. So if you're thinking about Christmas shopping for the IU fan in your life, Home Field remains the place to go. And Home Field probably has something for the non-IU fans on your list as well, with more than 100 schools now being represented. So what do you need to do? You need to go to homefieldapparel.com right now, or preferably when you're done listening to the show, and start crossing names off your holiday shopping list. You can use the promo code HOME. That's different from last year. The promo code is HOME, HOME, to get 15% off your first order. That's promo code HOME at homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, well, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And let's go over to Coach Tonsoni. It is Tonsoni time. Coach, what's on your mind?
That's a disappointing effort in game one with so much positive vibe coming in. I don't think Indiana executed very well on the offensive end. I thought defensively there were some things, but this team reminds me of the teams of the last 3 or 4 years. Big lulls, getting a lead, letting the big lead go, hanging your head, no juice, 16% shooting from three, missed free throws down the stretch. Not a whole lot of turnovers, but some really bad decisions. So it's one thing to be able to play with confidence, but you have to execute on the backside of that confidence. Or, this team was 297th in the Ken Palm, Eastern Michigan coming in. There's no excuse to win by 2 or 3 or 6 or whatever we ended up winning by. This is not a good start for the Coach Woodson era. There are some positives, individual positives, some plays that are positive, but this has to be the low point of the Coach Woodson hire to this point. It is just not good basketball right now, and that's just shocking to me. It is first night. I know Ohio State had a close one against Akron. There are games all around the time, but excuses are for losers. This team needs to play better, and it needs to play better immediately if this team's going to make the tournament.
Come on, dude.
Dude, even Ryan thinks that's a little harsh after a victory. Just kidding, Coach. I actually think that you're right on everything you said. All right, let's go over and get thoughts from the other coach, Coach Marlowe, also the host of the Grace Burger Show, and doing a fine job of it, I might add. Coach Marlowe, your thoughts on this opening night effort from Indiana?
Well, thanks for that, Jared. I appreciate it. I'm going to take a little bit more of first half I liked. Second half was really ugly. I would totally agree with Coach. It seemed we got really stagnant when Race picked up that fourth foul. And after that, we didn't really seem to have a lot. Yeah, there were a lot of things we can look at, and we can say that they weren't playing very well at times. But I thought the pace was better in the first half, especially the first 5-8 minutes. I liked the fact that Coach Woodson was sticking with guys a little bit longer. We didn't see immediate subs at the first media timeout. So I'm going to take the more positive approach of, hey, he told us defense was ahead of offense, and the defense was got a little trouble in the second half. But I'm going to think positive. You usually see your best improvement, at least what we always used to think was that your best improvements between game 1 and game 2. So I'm looking forward to Friday night now. But yeah, the thing that bothers me is the 3-point shooting. I like the fact that we were shooting it, but like Coach said, can't shoot 16, 17% and win a lot of games that way.
Yeah, look, I mean, Coach, I think the points that you made there early, so many of them are spot on, because we saw when this team was really cooking, they jumped out on Eastern Michigan. And there's a big difference in athleticism between the two teams. There's a big difference in talent. And, Coach Woodson did say the defense is ahead of the offense. It's a new system. You've got a lot of new players. But I agree with you that the disappointment in watching the second half, I think we'll all give them time to fix the execution and some of that stuff. But it was just the energy that they played with. Like, it really kind of felt like they just kind of assumed, okay, we're up by 20. This game is over. We're going to cruise the rest of the way. And I give Eastern Michigan a lot of credit. They were shooting terribly and they just stuck with it. And they, they're the guard Farrakhan, he started making shots and they put it to us to say, hey, are you going to put us away or not? And we didn't. And so, I think if you look at, okay, so what can you maybe take as a positive from that? It's that hopefully this is going to be a good coaching point for Mike Woodson to come in and say, look, I know this is how things went here for the last few years, and that's great that we got the victory. But this kind of playing without energy and doing the kinds of things we've talked about doing, we can't have this. And you saw him get visibly upset a couple of times. One, I know in the first half, he, chewed out Jordan Geronimo, and, so we saw some of that. But I agree. We were all going to allow for some growing pains, but you don't want to see it come like that.
Yeah, it comes down to shot making, which has been our issue for a long time. I actually think Coach Woodson did a good job on the bench. He went to a power set at the 10-minute of the second half when things started to get tight, trying to get the ball inside because there were some bad shots being taken, quick bad threes. Then he went to a little flex action at the 7:30 mark, again, to try to get the team to calm down and get to the foul line and get some things done. So, yeah, I think he saw it slipping away, and he tried to do some things. But we have got to be better offensively in our decision-making to match what we did defensively for most of – guys are going to make shots. We held that team to 60-some points. Teams are going to hit shots on you. That kid was guarded and hit shots. But that's why you put them away. That's why when you're up 21, you go to 30. Again, it is the first game, and there are issues there. But again, it's about the style, not the style, but how they played. I like the pace. I like being able to shoot the three ball. It is a lot more fun. I'm seeing comments in here. It is a lot more fun, but you can't hide behind effort and pace and be happy if the result isn't good. And my only complaint is this was a bad basketball game for Indiana to start out. It doesn't mean it's going to be a horrible team or Coach Woodson can't coach or the players can't play. But I'm not going to come on here and say, oh, it's great, we got to win, when it's a 297 team. We got to play better. And a lot of teams will play bad their first game. But a week from tomorrow, we play a St. John's team that's going to come in and be a lot better than Eastern Michigan. That gives us 7 days in a game to get it righted. And yeah, the coaches are going to watch film and correct it. But, man, it just brought back a lot of demons from, is this just where we're at? And I know that's ridiculous because it's only one game. But that's not what we saw in the Bahamas, and it's not kind of what we saw at Belmont. And so maybe it was a crowd, maybe it was some other things, but regardless, it just has to be better.
Yeah, and obviously, one of the areas that people are going to look at is shooting. And Indiana's shooting tonight was abysmal. The Hoosiers are 4 for 24 from the three-point line, 12 of 20 from the free throw line. One thing that we spent a lot of time doing during the transition from Tom Crean to Archie Miller, perhaps too much time doing, was talking about how difficult this transition was going to be. And you're going from playing one style to another, and let's be patient, because we're trying to play this new style and all that stuff. And I think one thing that we can learn to be better is, those excuses probably need to go away a little bit quicker. But here's what I will say. One of the things that I saw tonight was some guys, especially some holdover guys, Rob Finney being one, who didn't seem fully comfortable in their new you've got a green light to shoot type role. And I thought it led to some poor decisions, some questionable decisions when it came to shot selection. Now, I like that it looks like guys are freer. Early in the game, we had a transition opportunity and Miller Kopp just pulled up off balance. Looked like he was going to fall forward. He pulled up so quickly for three. And so maybe some of those, we don't want to take all of those, but I like that the guys looked a little bit freer to shoot, but it may take guys a little bit of time to get comfortable doing that, Coach Marlowe. And again, I point out Rob Finney. I thought, his game was really interesting. He scored 7 points in the first half, didn't score in the second half, but was really looking for a shot. He took 11 shots tonight, which was second only to Trayce Jackson-Davis. He was 1 of 5 from three. And while I think we're all excited about that because you want to see Rob shoot more, and typically we're telling him shoot more, I really thought at least 3 or 4 of those were probably forced, And so, again, it just kind of seemed like a guy who's trying to get comfortable with what his new role is going to be and kind of some of this new freedom that he's got. And so that's as we look, to the future in some of these upcoming games, that's what I want to see is if some of those decisions feel a little bit more in the rhythm of what they're doing, as opposed to just, I'm open, I can shoot it now.
Yeah, I thought that was one thing that I really thought in the first half. I thought Rob played well. I thought Parker played well, and Miller may not have gotten as many shots off. But I really thought the way they played in the first half from that standpoint. But I felt like Parker and to a certain degree, I thought Rob kind of disappeared in the second half. I know he got 11 shots, but 7 of those 11 were in the first half. And so, and I just, there were times, as it's been pointed out in the chat, we still need to make sure we get Trayce touches. And there's times where we go a long time without getting Trayce a touch. And so that was something I was a little bit concerned about in the second half as well. Also, though, we had 6 turnovers in the first half, only 2 in the second. So we were playing better, or at least taking care of the ball better. But I'm with you, Jared. I like the pace in that first half, but I think some guys are still getting used to their role.
Yeah, which is natural, again, with a new coach and a new system. So I think it's fair to point out, but, we want to be patient and allow some of those things to develop, which is also why I think it's really good the way they set up this schedule so that, if we're going to have some of these struggles, at least we're having them against a team like Eastern Michigan and we can get a victory out of it. Because goodness knows we need to rack up victories to put ourselves in position to get back to the NCAA tournament. Coach, let's talk real quick about Race Thompson, who I thought did a lot of good things tonight. The scoring numbers obviously don't jump off the page. He had 5 points, but 10 rebounds, had 3 assists, a couple of really nice passes to Trayce Jackson-Davis, had some blocks, a steal. He really, I thought, especially early, was really setting the tone defensively, and you saw him in, perfect help side positions and just really kind of having one of those games where it wasn't always stuff that showed up on the stat sheet. But I thought he was overall really effective. And then down there toward the end, when things got kind of close, it was Race Thompson who was able to, find a way to score off a pass from Trey Jackson Davis, and Race Thompson who, saves a possession after a missed free throw. Even though we didn't score on that possession, he was doing some of those little things, those glue guy type things that you need and that you'd really like seeing from a senior.
Race was fantastic. Race was doing race things, and that's fun to watch. His contests of shots, his rebounding. How about his alley-oop pass on the diagonal back screen to Trace Jackson Davis for that dunk? And I just thought his nice little jump hook, a bank shot, was solid. And I think, then he hit a big free throw. I'd like to have him hit both of those. But, man, Race did what Race needed to do tonight to help Indiana come out with the victory. And as we just come to expect it. I mean, he's a glue guy. He's a, just a workhorse on both ends of the floor. So, he obviously TJD's best player, double-double, all that stuff. But Race probably overall was the second best player for his entire contributions. And he's just fun to watch because he does all those just those real tough guy things that Indiana needs. And that'll help Indiana win a lot of games.
And if you're wondering, yes, Ryan did take a text victory lap as Race was playing well to remind us that he called him the Draymond Green of this team. But of course we couldn't argue, nor would we want to, because Race was really good. The other guy I want to talk about here in segment one, Coach Marlowe, come to you first with this. Trace, I think, Coach, you said it right. Trace is the best player. He's the All-American. Race is probably next, and that glue guy and the guy that does all the dirty work. I would say the most interesting player tonight, and maybe the most interesting player most nights, is Xavier Johnson. Yeah. And I say interesting because he is a roller coaster of a player. There's going to be some ups and downs. I thought, if you want to know, what's the high point for Xavier Johnson, he's a guy who can get into the lane pretty much anytime he wants to. Now, we'll have to see him do it against higher level competition, but we haven't had that really since Yogi Ferrell, a guy who can get into the lane and do some good stuff when he gets in there. You also have a guy who can go coast to coast, and at the end of the game, when you're nursing a 2-point lead and you need to get a bucket, he'll just take it and go and get you a bucket. And again, we haven't had someone. Al Durham would do that occasionally, but not with, I think, the consistency that Xavier Johnson is going to do it with. On the flip side, you saw early, he had 2 timeouts or 2 turnovers before the first media timeout, had some defensive lapses. He certainly is a guy who's going to sell contact in a way that's going to annoy some Indiana fans, I think. And, he's got a shot. He made one of his threes, but he clearly has a shot that's just going to be kind of inconsistent. So he was up and down. I think, that's kind of who he's been in his career. But you saw a lot of the good, you saw a lot of the bad. But I think ultimately having a guy like him who can push the pace and constantly put pressure on the defense is going to make him very much a net positive for this team. I just think you're going to have to take some of the bad, some of the questionable decisions to get some of the good stuff. And we saw a lot of that on display tonight.
Yeah, excuse me. I thought that Xavier, that last play you mentioned, I was kind of going to come back to that maybe a little bit later. I was just absolutely shocked that Eastern Michigan didn't try to extend the game there and foul. And then when they let him just drive to the hoop and get a layup, and I saw a couple of people in the Discord chat, in the game chat on the Discord, where they were kind of like gutsy play, but I felt that was just a good, solid basketball play. The lane was there. He took it. The worst, in my opinion, that was going to happen is he's going to get fouled. And obviously he finished with the rim. And that was one of the things we'd heard all season, or the off season, was finishes well at the rim. And we saw that tonight. I think we saw some glimpses of that. His shot is going to be something where I think we're just going to kind of talk about throughout the season. It's just not a very good looking shot. It's awkward, but the other part I liked, he picks up full court, 3/4 court. He's putting some pressure on the other team, as much as possible. And I thought he got a bum call. Maybe people will disagree with me, but I didn't think he fouled the kid on the 3-point shot. I thought that was more of a leg kick that should have just been a play on, or whatever. But I think Xavier's going to be one of those guys that we talk about a lot throughout the season. Some good, some bad.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get talked about because when he's on the court, the ball is going to be in his hands. He is going to make things happen, good or bad, when he's on the court, Coach Tonsoni.
Yeah, I thought his second half was a lot better than the first half. I think he was, you talk about the first game jitters and playing in front of Assembly Hall and wanting to make a mark for yourself. I think he had an assist on a 3 early, and then he had 3 turnovers in a row. And Coach Woodson sat him and played Rob quite a bit in that first half, and rightfully so. And then I thought Xavier came back in the second half, and he got some buckets at the rim. That one you guys were talking about, but he had another half-court drive in there. But he's got to be tighter when he turns the corner on those handoffs, top middle handoffs and ball screens, and he turns the corner. He's either got to go in to score, or if he draws help, he's got to be. Tony talked about playing off 2 feet. I don't think he played off 2 feet very much, and he was leaving the ground, and the passes got deflected, and that was his problem. At Pittsburgh, that he had great assist numbers, but he also had a high number of turnovers. And so the Pitt fans talk about the Xavier Johnson experience, and we got a little bit of it today. I think the kid's a winner. I think he's a competitor. He's gonna listen. He wouldn't be here at Indiana if he didn't have a good relationship with the coaches. So he's going to get in film, and he's going to get his butt chewed on quite a bit of things that he did. And I think Coach Woodson pulled him in the second half after he took a 3 that I thought Trace needed to touch the ball, and both Rob and Xavier took quick threes as the game was, condensing there, that maybe they shouldn't have. And we'll need to talk about that later too. When you are encouraged all off season to shoot, and then the game flow comes, and then you go to flex, which is a little more, then you get in that, oh my gosh, we can lose mode. And I'm not blaming Coach Woodson. It was the right thing to do, but players sometimes put on the brakes and they lose that freedom a little bit. But I thought X finished the game pretty solid after a rough first start, but he can't have those 3 turnovers in the first 4 minutes against quality opponents. That's just not a good point guard play. And our point guards took 20 shots, and our 2 supposed best 3-point shooters that start only got 10 total shots in the game. So that's something the coaching staff will try to figure out is, Parker Stewart hits his first 2, and he barely touches the ball in the second half. So some things like that have to get fixed.
Is there a train going on somewhere?
Yeah, that's me. I live near the railroad. I live near the tracks. Hey, but somebody mentioned the other day, it was like the hype train. But I will agree, Coach. I think that one of the things that you mentioned, and I realize it's not the best we want him to play. There were a lot of things that got to get fixed. But to me, that's the biggest thing coming out tonight. Coach Woodson finally has a game film that he can show guys where the other team, and I know they scrimmaged Belmont, but to me, it's not the same. You don't know exactly what they were working on. Were they trying to play some different combinations, things like that? But he's got some game film now that he can put in front of them and really, as you mentioned, chew some guys out, critique it, say, hey, we got to get better at this. And let's remember, and I made the comment of this in the Discord, it's a marathon of a season. I want to win as many as possible, but it's also, I don't want to get, too deep into the situation where it's like, oh my goodness, we're never going to win games, or we're going to be in the, bottom 4 of the Big Ten type thing. I think Coach Woodson and this staff will make some of those corrections. It's just going to be a game by game progress thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, the upside for a game like tonight against a team like Eastern Michigan is if you can go out there and win by 40, 50 points, you win going away, everybody gets time. We can come on here, have a nice, relaxing post-game show, and kind of dream that things are already drastically different. And what happened was a little bit of a splash in the face with cold water of reality that this wasn't a very good team last year. This hasn't been a very good team for the last 3 or 4 years. And just having Mike Woodson and just having an injection of some new players doesn't automatically make us the 2013 team that would have beaten this team by 50 points. There's still a lot of work to be done. My parents were over. My dad was watching the game. Second half, he just kind of mutters to himself, well, you can change the coach, but you can't change the shooters. I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of right. And so this game, I think, look, we won and we're all happy about that. We're disappointed that it's not more. And I think part of that disappointment is we wanted it to feel a little bit different. And for brief moments, it did. You could see the pushing it and guys taking more shots. And you could see the kernels of change there and what it's kind of supposed to look like. But too much of it still felt too familiar. And I think that's the main kind of taste of disappointment that a lot of us will walk away from this game from, but it's just one game and they get to go again on Friday. And hopefully we'll see some of those things be corrected.
So
okay,
not
coming
to change. Not to change the tone real quick of my disappointment. The style is great. Running, shooting, driving the basketball, closing out. The backside closeouts were really good. But you're going to need guys to make shots if you're going to run that, or this is going to be a lot of losses if they keep shooting this way and you're shooting quick in the shot clock and you're starting to understand why things were run a little bit differently because your bread is buttered in the post. And if we're going to shoot 16%, we can't shoot all these threes. But if you want to run the style, you got to shoot them. So hopefully they go in. And if they go in, it's going to be a lot more fun in these postgame. So the style is much more enjoyable to watch other than the missed shots.
I mean, Coach, we've been talking about this. We knew that Indiana was going to take more three-pointers, and they did. Indiana shot 24, and I'm fine with that. You're going to have a bad shooting night. This will almost surely go down as one of, if not our worst shooting nights of the season. I mean, God willing, because if we have to endure too many more, it's not going to be good. But we knew Indiana was going to take more. But my biggest nagging question as the offseason waned and I looked at the numbers is like, man, Armand and Al hit a lot of threes at a high percentage. And yeah, we have Parker Stewart, but you didn't have obvious guys to step in and replace their percentage for a team that shot 32%. So this thought that we were just automatically going to become a 36, 37, 38% three-point shooting team, to me, it was crazy. I still think, not crazy, but unrealistic. I still think we're going to be a 32, 33% shooting team. We'll just shoot more of them. And so I think be a little bit more efficient in how we use it and use it to space the floor more. Because one thing that you did see is Trace did have some space, because Race was out past the three-point line. And so Race missed a couple of the three-pointers that he took, but at least him being out there pulled, the defense away a little bit. And that, gave him some more space. So look, we're going to have to see how this develops. We're all disappointed with the shooting. But I think we probably need to steel ourselves for this team still being pretty frustrating from downtown, unless we have some guys that step up and really hit better than what their historical numbers suggest that they will. Okay, let's move on now to segment 2 as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's closer than hoped victory over Eastern Michigan. I'll point out tonight's meaningful moment you might have missed. Then we'll go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, it's Thomas Bryant. What's the only thing better than being Kentucky in the NCAA tournament? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
There's a guy who could make some outside shots. The great Thomas Bryant. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jared Morris here with Coach Brian Tonsoni and the coach Jeff Marlowe. We are breaking down Indiana's 68-62 opening night victory over Eastern Michigan. And guys, it is time now for tonight's meaningful moment that you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
So there are a couple that I want to talk about from the first half. The first one is one that certainly nobody missed, but folks may have forgotten about. And that is Jordan Geronimo's scrape your knuckles on the moon alley-oop. I don't remember who threw the pass, but it was Trace or Race. Someone threw it to him. And I mean, it looked like it was going to sail out of bounds. And Jordan Geronimo somehow just kept elevating. It was, I don't like the OG Anunoby comparisons with Jordan because he's got a long ways to go, but it was an OG moment and that he just kept rising, just kept going up and got the ball. And I saw Freddie McSwain retweeted a highlight of it, with kind of like a surprise face. And it's like, man, if you do something on a basketball court from an athletic standpoint that impresses Freddie McSwain Jr., you've really achieved something. But Coach, the moment that really stood out, and it's about a guy, that we haven't talked about a lot tonight, which is Parker Stewart. And he stepped up early, knocked down his first 2 3-point shots, really looked good shooting it. Looked like he was on his way to a big scoring night. He didn't score again. He just made those 2 3-pointers. And that's something that we can certainly talk about because I think he's a guy that needs to get good shots, as good as his shot looks. But, the big question for Parker, I think, that's going to determine how much he plays is defensively. And we know he's a good shooter. He's not a great athlete, struggles laterally. And there was a play early when Indiana's defense was really locked in. First possession of the game, they get a shot clock violation. I mean, they were really playing good defense. And an Eastern Michigan player had it out on the left wing. He had a quick first step, tried to drive into the middle on Parker. And I thought Parker did an excellent job of turning his body, staying, mostly in front of the guy, not letting him get into the lane, and deterred the guy just enough so he could get the help defense from Race. Race came over, and I think they forced a turnover or a bad pass. And that to me is something it was really good to see from Parker. Now, he's going to have to guard guys better and more athletic than what we saw from Eastern Michigan. But if he can just do that on the wing, not get beat off the dribble, keep guys in front of him, that's going to be really, really important. And I think is going to help keep him on the court more. So I was really encouraged to see that. And hopefully that's something as the season goes on that we see from him defensively.
Yeah, I tell you, your first comment, Geronimo, I was really impressed with Geronimo. I think he's going to end up getting more minutes and more minutes and more minutes. You just can't teach that athleticism, his ability to rebound, his ability to, he's got 2 dunks. I think the over-under was 15 on the year, and he's got 2 in game 1.
Jay,
already.
You set that one too low, man.
He was a positive. And I think, Parker Stewart, we kind of lost him for whatever reasons, and I'm not going to blame him or, get personal with any of that, but we can't lose a kid that can score 15 points. He comes out and bangs 2 threes. And then I think he took his 4 threes in the first 6 or 7 minutes and then didn't get another 3. There has to be maybe some sets run for him. Coaches will make that decision. Or, again, you talk to your players getting on film, as Coach Marlowe said, and you go find them. But the concern going in was, can Parker guard? And he's always going to struggle a little bit because he's not the most athletic of basketball players. But I thought he was okay tonight defensively. I thought he battled on that one play you were mentioning. He beat a guy, and all you got to do is, slide and then turn and run and have a contested 2. The athletes with the ball these days, you're not going to be in a defensive slide and do a W drill like we used to do and shut people off by lifting your foot, pushing the old defensive slide drills. That's over. It is get a gap, take one big step one direction, and then you got to turn and kind of hip the guy and get your high hands and hope that you disrupt the pass, make him throw a ball instead of a strike, those kinds of things, or take a bad shot. And I thought Parker Stewart did that. I saw some clips of the Bahamas and Belmont where he struggled, and so that's going to be a work in progress for him too. But if he can guard, then we got to find him offensively. I was happy with those 2 guys that you just mentioned. I thought they did well given the opportunities they had.
Coach Marlowe, any moments stand out to you that we haven't had a chance to discuss yet tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to come with 2, Jared, actually. And they kind of were pretty similar. I think it was coming right out of it was officially the under 12 timeout, I believe, in the first half. But we went to Scoop had his first bucket, I believe it was. And then Rob followed with a jumper, and then Scoop on the next possession had a driving layup with, the left hand. And so I thought that 3 possession segment went pretty well. I really and I wish we'd seen more of that. And then about the 7:30 mark, I made the notes. We had a situation where we moved the ball. It was like 3 passes, but we moved the ball around from one side of the floor to the other and swung it to Rob, and he had a wide open 3, which I think was his only 3 of the night. And so those 2, that to me is where the offense is. Now coach is going to nitpick it. And I'm not talking about Coach Hassan, I'm talking about Coach Whitson. They're going to nitpick some of the things. But I think as a coach, I always like to show positive things to the kids too. And that's one thing I'm going to be like, that's the way the offense should look, and then knock down the shot. Because if that's the case. So I thought those were a couple moments that I really wanted to point to. And then just kind of talking about tomorrow. And you've been, the episodes with tomorrow on the Inside Scoop are just fantastic. But it just really surprised me because I had not had a chance to see the Bahamas films or the Belmont film, just how long he is. I think on that driving layup, somebody made the comment in the Discord chat that he covered about 20 feet in 2 steps and 1 dribble. And just really, his upside is huge.
It is huge. And, so you pointed out, those moments from him in the first half. And I thought he played really well in the first half when he was in there. He was active. He looked for a shot. But he's a freshman, and I thought we saw him play like a freshman in the second half. I thought he forced a shot. It forced a couple of shots, actually, and then on one of them kind of compounded it by going down and reaching on defense and letting his man get by him. So it was, Coach Tonsoni, a mixed bag for Tamar. But, yes, you watch him out there, and he looks like a different kind of athlete. Same with Jordan Geronimo. And that's why I think, one thing that has me excited about the long-term potential for this team. I've always thought that I never really thought it was going to be smooth sailing here early. I think we're going to win a lot of these games, but there's going to be some ups and downs. But one of the things I really like about this team, and I think we saw it some tonight, is you look at the guys that are coming off the bench. And I mean, two of our three best athletes and two of the guys with the highest ceiling and maybe pro potential are coming off the bench, and Jordan Geronimo and Tamar Bates. And so and that's probably fair right now, given where they are, given where the other guys are. But if they progress as their talent and their athleticism suggests that they can, boy, they could really give huge boosts come Big Ten play, which is what I expect. And I think you saw enough from those guys tonight to believe that that's very much in play.
Yeah, Tamar's, in order for us to reach our potential, Tamar's got to advance as fast as he can to get more minutes. I think the only reason that Tamar doesn't get major minutes is he's learning how to play defense at this level. He had a few false hustle plays, running past a guy on a three and then circling back and reaching. But those are to be expected because you probably don't have to guard as hard in your high school games as you do in college, even against a team, You got a bad team like Eastern Michigan. They still are basketball players, Division I transfers, and you find a lot of speed at these kind of levels too, because they use that speed. And maybe they have more speed than some other schools because they don't have the size or the shooting ability or whatever else. So you'll find some quickness that you'll go up against some of these teams that you need to beat. But his shot is just smooth. His ability to get the basket is smooth. I thought he took a bad shot. Coach pulled him. I thought a quick three. Coming out of a timeout, followed by a drive with a heave. Again, those are our learning moments. They're not good. And again, you got to understand, I'm a coach. I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, you're a freshman. Nice job. You only threw the ball up when you were falling down. And no, Tamar, I don't care if you're a freshman. It's a bad shot. But, boy, is he good. And I think he's going to have to get upwards of 20 minutes come tournament time, Big Ten tournament time, end of the Big Ten, if Indiana's going to reach their potential, because talent is there, the ability to score. And that's kind of why we lost the lead too, is you got one guy in the post that can score, but you need that driver. X did it a little bit, but boy, having Tamar on there getting to the foul line too. The one thing that I will point out, a couple things, is our ability to post feed. It looked a lot easier this year, and you could tell Coach Woodson is emphasizing getting that ball into the post, especially in that second half. I mentioned earlier at the 10-minute mark, he went with the two low post, a high-low thing specifically to settle the team down and try to throw it in the post. It didn't necessarily work out because we didn't score a lot, and then he went to that flex later on. So those are some things that he knew this team was a little out of control, shooting and not hitting shots and not executing, and he tried to put his thumb on it. And that's a reason to be positive too, is, he knows what he's doing. This was bad. He's going to be the one who says it's bad too, maybe not publicly, but he's not going to be happy at all. But he did try to put his thumb on that with some designs that, hey, guys, go to trace when you're in trouble. So post feeds were something we might have missed because it's not as fun as the dunks and the moves, but I really thought we post fed the basketball a lot better than in previous seasons.
And speaking of that, Coach, I know that they pointed it out on the BTN telecast, but I thought Trace did a much better job this year of facing up. He squared up and was able to see what the defense was doing, whether they were bringing the double team or whether they're going to take him one-on-one. The other part, Coach, I would kind of be interested in your opinion. I know we had some letdowns, a couple, but I thought overall our closeouts were a whole lot better this year, getting out to the threes, especially in the first half again. But I had that in my notes a couple different times. I just really liked the way we went to attack the closeouts. What do you think?
I absolutely agree. Our defense was fun tonight. And I think that's why we're going to win more games. The offense hurt the defense because it didn't spread the game out. And then, kids will get hot on you, and you can close out super, and a guy can bang threes. And then he drives the lane and kicking his legs and doing all that stuff. And we've seen it way too many times against the Indiana basketball team. One kid just getting hot, banking in threes. It seems almost every year some no-name kid from Eastern Michigan, Washington State of Georgia or something banks in 10 threes on us, But you need the offense to keep that at 20, 25. So when the kid gets hot, it only goes back to 16 or 15, not gets down under 10, and then you get tight. And the kids, here's the thing. Those kids want Indiana basketball back. The coaching staff wants, and it just got a little bit tight in certain parts of the body when your butt started puckering up a little bit in game one because that wasn't supposed to happen. That's a teaching point as well. So you can learn a lot from an awful performance. And this was just an awful offensive performance, but it wasn't awful on the defensive end. I thought their attitude, effort, their rebounding, I thought was good too. And yes, it's Eastern Michigan, but I think those things are things to build on.
And I just think that, like you said, a lot of that, they can improve on. And I think there are areas offensively that the coaches are going to do. I'm really excited to see what they will kind of adjust come Friday night and how they do things. But I agree with you about offense. On the offensive end, Coach, don't you think? And maybe Jared, I'm not trying to take over the show, but
I love it. Go
when it
Coach's corner without Jared.
When it got to like the last 10 minutes, as it got closer, it was almost like you could just see them playing not to lose, where as you really want them to go out there playing to win. You still want them to have that. But that's, especially with a group that's still relatively new together. Coach, you've been there, sometimes they got to learn that process, but they just look like they were, I don't want to be the guy that misses a shot. I don't want to be the guy.
Isn't that the coach's dilemma? Like when to stop playing, when to start eating clock, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I said that earlier too. All season, you got the freedom to shoot. All of a sudden, it's a 12-point game. You take 2 bad threes and a running shot in the lane, and it's down to 6. Those are teaching points. It's bad decisions, bad execution, but it's a teaching point. A lot better to teach with a win. But I do think some of that was the game. Some of that was, hey, we had freedom, and now I got to pull back. And you couldn't let them keep going the way they were going, or you would have lost the game.
Yeah.
That's a hard decision as a coach of when to do that. That's why I like the sets that he ran, which just forced them to run some time and some patterns instead of just, trying to create on their own. And I think it ultimately worked because we got the victory.
Well, and I just think you pointed that out, as you're pointing out. There was a spot there in the second half where Miller Kopp had a wide open corner 3. And he pump faked, he hesitated, then he shot it, and he left it short, kind of flat. And I made the comment to somebody, it was like, shouldn't have hesitated. Because to me, that was still a point in the game where it should have been a free flow. If you've got the green light, that's when you let fly. And I would trust Miller. I know he didn't hit. He hit. It was 0 for 3 tonight. Yeah, he didn't even hit a 3. But I think Miller's going to be a kid that hits those shots for us, and I want to see him shoot that shot at that point. That was still when we still had a double-digit lead, even. But he pump faked, like he shot about it or thought about it, and then shot it. And I've always believed when you think about it, you hesitate, you usually don't hit it.
All right, guys. Good stuff there. Let's go to Inside the Numbers, break down the most important numbers. This segment sponsored by the Power Rank, where our friend Ed uses data and analytics to make accurate football and March Madness predictions. Ed, he's been on the show several times before. So if you want sports betting advice with a PhD edge, or if you just like understanding sports at a more analytical level, you should subscribe to Ed's free newsletter. Go to thepowerrank.com/AC to subscribe. That's thepowerrank.com/AC. And be on the lookout for Ed's March Madness guide, which will come out later this year. It's awesome. All right, guys, let's dissect the numbers that tell the story of this game. My favorite number on the stat sheet, going back to the conversation about Tamar Bates, 2 for 2 from the free throw line for the freshman, which is always good to see, especially on a night when Indiana is 12 of 20. We talked about that. The bad shooting demons were there once again. Hopefully part of that is just you're going to have a couple bad shooting nights in the season. Sometimes it comes on your first game and it kind of highlights it a little bit. But maybe being out in front of the big crowd again, some jitters, all that stuff. I don't think this is going to be a particularly good 3-point shooting team, but I certainly think we'll be better than that. And if, you make 3 or 4 more of the open threes by capable shooters, it's a double-digit victory that you feel a lot better about. And so I think that context is at least important to point out. The other thing for me that kind of jumps out, Coach, that I didn't really like on the stat sheet is losing steals 6-3. And the reason why, it kind of gets back to something that you talked about earlier, which is kind of loose ball handling. Some of those were unforced, just bad passes, bad dribbles that they got. And I thought the fact that we only got 3 steals, that was in part just because I thought our defensive energy, waned at times, there in the middle of the first half and even longer for a stretch in the second half. I think against this team with our athleticism advantage, those numbers should at least be flipped, if not more. So those kind of jumped out to me. What numbers stood out to you in particular tonight?
Well, I'm going to go back and yes, we gave them steals too by throwing the ball right to their hands a little bit early in the first half, but we only had 8 turnovers with an increased pace. That's got to be a sign of positivity too, that it comes back to shot making, because we didn't turn it over 15 times, even though we were playing fast and shooting faster in the shot clock. So that's a positive. But they came in bunches, X had 3 right away. So maybe that was early in his stint with the crowd. And then Rob came in right away and turned one over too. So there's 4 in the first 5 minutes of their season. So yeah, you could probably pare that down. But they still had 4 turnovers in that, but 8 only. What was interesting to see. Again, the other number we mentioned for me is Miller Kopp, and has to get more attempts, and Parker Stewart has to get more attempts. I think that's where you're going to score. If they double team the post, or if X or Rob drive the lane, we got to space up. I saw Coach Adranya say something. They were a little stagnant on the backside. They weren't moving, lifting, shaking up, whatever the term is that your program uses. So it's kind of hard to find people as well. Again, get better between game 1 and game 2, but more shots for the guys who are supposed to be the shooters, and keep the turnovers under 10. The offense will take care of itself. We got to hit shots a little bit better.
And Coach Marlowe, one other number that I think is interesting is the 4 fouls on Race Thompson. And he means so much to this team that, especially until Michael Durr gets back, he's going to have to play his brand of basketball, which is physical, which is active, without fouling. Yeah. And I thought a couple of his fouls were just, getting a little bit off balance. And again, hopefully it's, first game type stuff. But this team was significantly worse with him off the court tonight. And so against a better team, they might have been able to take advantage of that. And those minutes off the court cost us, a win. So for as good as Race played, he's got to play that same brand of basketball, but stay on the court until reinforcements come in the front court. What other numbers stood out to you?
Well, and I don't necessarily want to get big into plus minus, but I just think that I would like to have seen there was that lineup in the first half, and it goes back to Race being in the lineup. We went a little smaller. We moved Race to the 5, and then we basically play. I want to say it might have been Rob and Tamar and Jordan and maybe Trey was in that rotation, and that group actually played pretty well. And so I know we don't necessarily want to play totally small. I mean, we have Michael Dewar for a reason, but I did kind of like that lineup. I would like to see what the numbers were with that group on the floor, and again, I'm not a huge plus minus guy, but I'd like to know what our, did we outscore them by a decent amount while that group was in. The other number I was looking at was assists. We had 13 assists on 26 made buckets. So 50% of our makes. I would like obviously for it to be a little higher, but we were making, we were assisting. We were moving the ball to a certain degree. The number that concerns me a little bit, and again, it goes back to what Coach has been talking about, not just threes, but and I know the 3 number drags it down a little bit, but so we were 22. That's why it wasn't quite as bad. We were 22 of 38. So our 2% number was a little bit better than I thought it was. Until I actually did the math there. So, we just got to find a way to knock down shots, and that 17% is just not acceptable.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Coach, we can kind of bottom line this. I mean, Indiana only scores, 0.944 points per possession tonight. And that's probably the most important number. I know that, looking at preseason KenPom numbers and looking at last season's numbers tell a very partial story. But just for some context, Eastern Michigan was 296 in the country in defense last year. And they came in, to this game. Well, I don't know what they came into, but they're 255th now. And there's a reason why Indiana's KenPom ranking dropped from 31 to 39th after tonight's game, because this was a game Indiana was supposed to win by more. And a big part of the reason why was just the offense. Scoring less than a point per possession in your home arena against Eastern Michigan. I think we've tried to give as many explanations as we can for maybe why the shooting's not better and, guys learning a new system and all this stuff. Like, ultimately, yeah, maybe that whittles you down to you should have had 1.05 points per possession, not 0.944. And that is, I think, a very reasonable thing to walk away from this game being concerned about. That, boy, our first game out, the bar is set really low for where this offense is. And a performance like this is going to get you beat in almost every Big Ten arena and your own home against Big Ten teams. So they got a ways to go offensively. And there's no talking around that after tonight. That's a bad number against this team.
Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed. Everyone can tell. I'm getting texts from people who are watching going, man, coach, you were so looking forward to the day, and now you're so grumpy. It was plain just shooting. If you have 13 assists and 8 turnovers, that's not the foundation is there.
Yep.
The pace is there. The foundation is there. The rotation is there. The guys that we have can shoot the basketball at least at the mid-30s. The foundation is there. It just needs to get better. I mean, it was a very, very poor shooting. And then the bigger issue, Jared, for me is this group has had trouble handling adversity. The big runs for the last 2 years, the 11 losses out of 12, it just seemed as when the offense stopped, then the defense waned just a little bit. And then it was like, oh, no, this is going to happen again. They've got to get mentally past that. And that's going to be a challenge to the coaching staff to just say, I didn't see anyone really gather anyone up and chew anyone out on there. Or, hey, we got it. They were talking, and I don't know what was said or not said, but they all looked a little shell-shocked, like this has been so good. Everything's been positive. We played well in the Bahamas. We played well at Belmont. Now we're not playing, and that old, oh, my gosh, look on their faces kind of appeared again. So the two things are shoot the ball better and have a little confidence. Yeah, you had a bad shooting game, but your defense kept you in. That's what championship teams do, because you're going to have off nights offensively. So fix what you can, get some more reps up, come back tonight and shoot some shots and cook all, and then flush it and get ready for Friday.
And I agree with that. I think you just got to try and put it, you learn from it, but like Coach said, you flush it. But I also, one of the things I talked a little bit about last year and the couple times I was on, I refer to it as the alpha. Who's the guy that's going to say, I want the ball, I want to make a play? Now, that might be X. It might be Xavier, because he showed that in that last play, that last 20 seconds. I like that. To me, that's a winning play. But we need somebody we need more of that. We can't have, like Coach is talking about, we can't have what it ended up being, about a 5-minute drought that seemed like where we didn't score. And we can't have that. I mean, and I think part of that, coaches, you're getting the text and stuff, and we're hassling you a little bit, but I think we had everything had been going so well in the offseason that we just assumed that tonight they were going to come out and score 100 points and hold them to 30, and it was going to just hang a banner. But it's a work in progress, and I think Coach, I'll be very interested. I wish I could be a fly on the wall at practice tomorrow in a film session and just really listen to things that they're emphasizing. I know the things we're talking about, but I'd like to know what they see in the film and what they're emphasizing.
The only other number that I want to mention, and it allows us to talk about a guy we haven't talked about tonight, is Trey Galloway, who had 1 assist, 2 turnovers, and 4 fouls. And I point those numbers out specifically because, Trey Galloway, the two things to me that you really want him to bring is creating offensive opportunities for his teammates and playing good, solid defense. I didn't think he did that a lot tonight. It kind of looked like more of the same from him that we saw in the second half of last year. Now look, he did have a couple of drives where he made some nice passes. He had an assist. I know he had that floater in the second half, but also had a couple of opportunity or, possessions there, Coach, where he, kind of dribbled into the lane without much to do and turned it over and, seemed kind of a step slow physically and mentally on defense, which is why he picked up those fouls. I think if you're going to give Trey Galloway 14 minutes, you need those numbers to be flipped from him. He's got to defend without fouling, and he's got to give you more assists than turnovers, because until something drastically changes, he's not going to be a guy who scores, against the athleticism of college basketball players, and he's not making outside shots. So he's got to create offense and he's got to defend without fouling. Tonight he didn't do that. So hopefully it's a one-night thing, but it wasn't a great initial omen for what he's going to do with his minutes.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, again, to be in the coach's office, too. I wonder if they thought he was a better matchup defensively to shut off some of the drives at that position. Yes, he fouled, and that's a negative number, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that, he's got to do what he's got to do. But there might be some unwritten successes there that don't show up on the stat sheet. That's the reason the coach went with him. Because maybe he felt, and I don't know, that he was able to stop some of the things Eastern Michigan was doing a little better than Miller Kopp or whoever he was in there for in his rotation minutes. Sometimes there's just a better feel. Coach Marlowe can talk about it. Here's this guy, he's going to do this, and it's maybe on the offensive end you just set screens, or the threat of a drive helps open up something else, and there's no stat that shows that, but the coach sees it in film. That's the only reason I think he gets 14 minutes because he can do those things you said, Jared. And I actually, short of the 2 turnovers, I thought he was okay. Not great. I thought he was okay. I thought he played with a lot of pace. He looked to drive and attack when he could. The 2 turnovers need to be corrected. But again, we only had 8. And if you're going to play a faster pace, 8 is acceptable. So there's something.
It does kind of feel like this. It does kind of feel like the speed of the offense caught up to him a little bit because he was always playing that fast last year.
Right.
And now it looked like the pace of the offense caught up to him a little bit.
And there's something. Both coaches have thrown him out there in some minutes that are valuable. So there's a lot of intangible things, I think, that if we sat down and had, full access to coach, that he would say, this is why I like him. And sometimes guys are good for the game without stats.
And
that's the only thing I can imagine.
He's going to give you 100% effort and he's going to be aggressive, so he's going to make mistakes of aggression, and that's a plus on his side. He just, as he matures as a second-year player, he's got to be able to be aggressive and effective at a higher rate, and so hopefully as we move forward in these non-conference games, we see that from him.
Well, I think that's sometimes we get so caught up in the analytics of the game anymore that sometimes coaches, Coach Thompson said, we play hunches. I just got a hunch that kid is a better matchup tonight than somebody else that would be on the bench. And it won't show up in a stat sheet. And somebody's going to ask you after a post game, why did Trey Galloway play? Or why did, Timmy Smith play more tonight than, Jimmy Jones? I mean, that's the way it is. We just sometimes play hunches, and sometimes we're right, and sometimes we don't look very good on those hunches. But I really liked, I will say this about the fouls. If you play enough minutes, and in 14, 15 minutes, maybe kind of a borderline, but Coach Thompson, I always felt like if our kids were getting decent minutes, they needed at least 3 fouls. I mean, if you're not getting, at least in our system, if you weren't picking up 3 fouls and you were playing 25, 26 minutes, you weren't being aggressive enough. You weren't being active enough. Now, Trey got a couple fouls tonight that were probably like, what are you thinking? But I don't mind a foul if you're being active. I don't mind a foul if you're within, the flow of what you're trying to do. The other thing I liked about Trey, and Jared and I talked a little bit about this kind of in text, I think, was that they played a little point forward with him in the first half. Kind of remind me kind of the old Bucks with Paul Pressey, where they, play a little point forward because Rob was on the floor at the same time, but he wasn't the one bringing up the floor and initiating the offense. That would be something I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of with that second unit. Coach,
I agree with you on the fouls. I think you need to foul at least once a half, at least, to show that you're real active. Now, you don't want TJD just being ridiculous with his fouls, and you really want to protect him. But the other guys, you better be up in someone's grill, and you better be cutting off, flashes to the middle and bump someone. Okay, the official calls one. You don't want 4 necessarily, because that puts you in jeopardy of being disqualified. But I think that's a great point, Coach. You got to, the way long time ago when I played, I always took one in the first half right away and told the kid, I'm here all day. I usually hit him in the stomach or the face and said, yep, that's the first one. You keep driving, there'll be more. So I think you got to play that way. That's what Race gets fouls too, and that's why Race does a lot of the intangible things too. So I think that's a very good point.
I would have liked to see a young Coach Tonsoni play one-on-one against Tamar Bates and just hear the trash talk that would occur.
I enjoy talking about it, but I'm not really proud of some of the stuff I said on the high school basketball.
I'm not
floor.
sure that
To the players and to the fans.
There's nothing wrong with trash talk, Coach.
I'm not sure Coach Thompson how he would have done, but I could not have guarded that kid. That was not my forte in high school. I was a shooter, so don't ask me to guard that kid.
Fairly certain none of us could guard him. That's
Nope.
That is for sure. There's a reason why he was a 5-star recruit. All right. Let's move on now to our next segment coming up. We're going to hand out our game balls and our Hoosier Hustle Award. Then we will look ahead to Indiana's next opponent before it's time for last call. That's next on the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hey, it's Romeo Langford. What's the only thing better than hitting a game winner to beat Wisconsin? Celebrate it with friends afterwards. Join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you, Romeo. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. And make sure that you sign up for our free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 9,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed. You can join for free today at join.assemblycall.com. That's join.assemblycall.com. I'm Jared Morris, here with the coach Brian Tonsoni and the coach Jeff Marlowe. Guys, it is time to hand out our game balls. Now, let's remember, game balls are always a little tricky when you have a team like Indiana has this year with a clear superstar player. He's probably going to get the game ball most of the time, and that's okay because we also have our Hoosier Hustle Award coming, which kind of allows us to have a secondary game ball for another performance that is worthy of mention. So, let's be fair to Trace Jackson Davis, and if he deserves a game ball, let's give it to him. I got to give him the game ball tonight. 21 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks. I thought he really changed portions of the game with his defense. I thought he showed some really nice passing. And he was efficient, 9 of 14. Now, only 3 of 7 from the free throw line. And obviously he disappeared at times in the second half. That's partly on him, partly on the guys, for not finding him. And so I certainly don't think that it was a performance without fault. But in a game where you only win by 6 points, you needed all of that production. And that is one thing from Trace, man. You can nitpick his game, and sometimes he doesn't quite have it, and other times he does. But he is a guy who really consistently, since the day he stepped foot on campus, probably not ready to be the star the whole team revolved around. He was thrust into that, and he produces. He puts up numbers. And sometimes you just need those numbers to get a win. And Indiana needed them tonight. So a really solid game from Trace Jackson Davis. So he gets my game ball. Coach Tonsoni, your game ball goes to
Coach Woodson. Welcome back.
Hey, okay. All right.
Welcome back. We're glad you're here. Obviously you got a tall task ahead of you, especially after the offensive performance tonight, but you're in it for the right reasons. And I do think that Indiana is in good hands, and there will be a lot better performances because it means something to you, and for bringing Coach Knight back and getting the guys back together. There's just a better feel. I'm going to be honest. I thought it was a bad offensive performance, and it's not good, but I'm proud to have you back. I'm proud that you're a Hoosier. And let's go get another one on Friday. But this is win number 1 of many. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Mm-hmm. Coach Marlowe.
Wow, I didn't know we could pick the coaching staff. So
you can't, but I just do it anyway.
I guess I'll kind of go the other way. I'm going to go. I'll go with Race. I know he only scored 5 points, but 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. And he was plus 18 when he was on the floor.
All right. Well, that means the Chat Mob gets to break the tie here. Let's go, Chat Mob. Help me count them up here because it looks like it was kind of split. We've got AZ Hoosiers giving it to Race. Kathy seems like she's giving it to Race. Let's go. Start putting them in there. We got Justin Race, Jay Race, Kathy Race. Okay. It looks like people are going with Race Thompson. All right. Following the lead of Ryan Phillips here and going with Race. Jay went with Trace Jackson Davis, a very sensible choice by Jay.
3 more.
No, it's pretty clear.
It's not mediocre either.
Okay, Race Thompson is your game one game ball, a worthy recipient. Race played really, really well. But look, part of the game. Here's my issue with the argument for Race. Okay, people are saying that we were much better with him on the court. Availability is a skill, and Race only played 24 minutes because of those 4 fouls. So Trace was out there for 37. That's why, to me, I weighted Trace's production over Race's. I mean, Race was better in the minutes he was on the court, but you got to be out there.
But Jared, we auto-set him with 2 fouls. How did you feel about that?
Oh, no. Coach Marlowe, don't go there. I'm going to take it away from Coach Jared's comment because he's going to go. He's going to get really mad.
2 fouls.
How about our chat mob? They appreciate a guy like Race. And Trace will get 30 some game balls probably before it's said and done with either. But kudos to the chat mob.
Everybody appreciates Race. Race played an outstanding game. It's just this is what happens with great players, and it's fair. You get graded on a curve, and so Trace has to do something extraordinary, and that's fine. I think that's okay. But in a game like tonight, the guy who plays 37 minutes over the guy who plays 24, I'm giving mine to the guy who played 37. So
and that's fair. I just was, since Coach went with Coach Woodson, I was like, I might as well go with somebody else. I'll make a tie. But I do have a concern a little bit about first game of the year, TJD. I know Durr's hurt, but TJD having to play 37 minutes tonight is a concern.
I agree. We need Michael Durr back. Michael Durr is the difference between 2 or 3 wins in Big Ten play. I firmly believe that. I think he can make us a 12-8 team, or we could be 10-10. We know how important that depth is. And it's not just for keeping Trace fresh. It's for having the fouls. And Michael Durr has some skills. Like, he's not just a body. He can step out and make shots. So I agree. We need to get him back. He's going to be really important because he's a better player than Joey Brunk. And Joey Brunk, I thought, was the difference between 2 or 3 wins last year. So we got to get him back. All right, time now for the Hoosier Hustle Award, sponsored by our friends at Evansville Security Services.
The Hoosier Real Hustle Award.
That's a placeholder name because obviously it was the Mike Roberts Hustle Award. We haven't fully figured out exactly what we're going to name it. The great Bob Thompson emails me. It was this morning or yesterday. He's like, "Hey, do you need new music for the? I mean, how great is Bob Thompson?" So we just said we're going to call it the Hoosier Hustle Award until we get a better name. But speaking of our friends at Evansville Security Services, they're based in the hometown of IU legend Calbert Chaney and hopefully future legend Christian Lander, although getting a DNP coach's decision in your first game of the season doesn't portend well for that, but it's early, so hopefully he gets plenty of minutes. But Evansville Security Services provides off-duty police officers to businesses and individuals throughout Indiana. Remember, prevention cannot be measured, so let Evansville Security Services help you prevent a bad outcome today. Go to evansvillesecurityservices.com to learn more. That's evansvillesecurityservices.com. This one to me is easy. Race Thompson gets this award. He was all over the place. He absolutely maximized everything that he could do with his minutes. And I think he just played tough Race Thompson type basketball. As we said, I think he's got to be able to do it without fouling because I don't think we're going to win a lot of games with him playing 24 minutes. He's got to be a 28 to 32 minute a game guy. But he really played well tonight. A good first night out for him. Coach Tonsoni, you going to give it to Dane Fife? Maybe go with Coach Ya, Fad Mata for the Hoosier Hustle Award. Who gets it?
JD Campbell was really kind to me with media passes for bracketology. I've talked to him this week, and so I'm going to get some media passes. So he gets the Hustle Award for getting me in the building here a few times this year. No, boy, it's hard not to go with Race for the Hustle Award either. The other candidate is Geronimo, simply for you have to hustle to get that high off the floor to grab a pass and dunk the ball like he did. But I'm going to go with Race. He just was all over the place today, and I think a key reason why Indiana was able to hold out. He came back in late and did some nice things too. So I'm gonna go with you, Jared.
One under the radar name for this could be Xavier Johnson because he did play hard. I mean, he had too many turnovers, but he certainly played hard. Coach Marlowe, who are you going with?
You kind of stole one of my guys I was thinking about, Xavier Johnson, but I wasn't sure if we could pick the same person for both awards. So that was the other.
No. You got to go with somebody different.
No, then
I don't know. We don't have rules. Actually, go with whatever you want. It's game one.
I'll kind of go with Xavier there. I just thought that since I went with Race on the game ball, I'll go with Xavier because he ended up with 14 points. and 3 assists to go with, again, and he was 5 of 6 at the free throw line. And so he made the play to me at the end of the game that was a winning play. So I'm going to go with Xavier Johnson.
A true rarity, Race Thompson winning the game ball and the hustle award with no overlap votes either, which doesn't happen very often. Who did the chat mob go with for the Hoosier Hustle Award? A lot of Race. Kathy went with Xavier.
There's
Okay,
Geronimo.
Yeah, we got some Geronimo votes. All very worthy candidates. All right, guys, any other storylines from this game? I know one thing people are asking about is, Christian Lander and Anthony Leal both did not play. Just obviously the guys right now that are the odd men out in the rotation. Same with, Logan Duncombe. Indiana only played 9 guys. And I think, maybe if you look at, okay, so you only win this game by 6. Yeah, it goes in the books as a win, all that stuff. But it also, Coach, it's a bit of a lost opportunity in that if you're up by 40 points, you can, or 20 points or 30 points late, you can get some other guys in the game. Trace doesn't have to play 37 minutes. So that is the other part of this where it's like, man, we really missed an opportunity there for a Lander, for a Leal to get in and to, to save some wear and tear on Trace, because those were tough minutes at the end. I mean, he's getting fouled, he's posting up. So that's something that you don't want. That's a well that you don't want to have to go to in game 1 against the 300th ranked team in the country.
Yeah, and that's again where it's just a little frustrating. You had a 20-point lead and let it get down to 2 at one point. I think it got down to, or 3. It was at least a one possession a couple times where we had to score to push it back up. That's where, you miss out. Those 9, 10, 11, 12 guys that could have gotten 3 or 4 minutes, gotten some game film, as we've mentioned earlier. Those are all teaching points that early on in some of these games that, you would like to be up 25 or 30 with 4 minutes to go and rest your players. The 37 minutes is going to take a toll. I think TJD missed some free throws again late because he was a little bit tired from, all the effort he had to put out. So, I think 8 or 9 is ideal for a coach to run. Otherwise, you got to be on the floor and get a rhythm. And if you're playing 11 or 12, I think you lose that rhythm and playing with each other and knowing where the pass needs to be. And so I like an 8 or 9 man rotation, especially tighten it up when you get later in the season. But you do want to get opportunities for guys to get minutes that are on the backside. And tonight was a missed opportunity.
By the way, we have some controversy in the chat here. As John Bender reminds us, the Hustle Award, no, not John, Alex reminds us the Hustle Award was created to not give the game ball to the same person. So giving it to different people makes sense. And that is true. And so I do think that we need to have a rule that you cannot vote for the same guy for the game ball and the hustle. But in the odd case like tonight, where no votes overlapped, it's just that the chat mob broke the tie for the game ball, and then 2 of us picked Race for the hustle, we'll have to allow it. So Race wins both, even though it's just kind of a quirk of the voting. So I hear all of you in there. I think you're correct, but I think hosts cannot vote for the same person. The chat mob cannot award it to the same person. But I do think if the vote just kind of comes out like it did tonight with a 3-man panel, we have to honor the vote. Coach, did you want to respond to what Coach Tonsoni said? Kathy just gave me a blah. Blah.
I just trying to remember. You got me off. You went on your thing about not voting. I forgot what Coach said.
Don't ask me to repeat it. I forgot too. It wasn't worth the crap anyway.
Oh, about Lander. That was it. We were talking about Lander and Leal. But I was surprised about Lander, especially considering some of the comments that we'd seen in the press availability the last couple of days, and from some of the things that we'd gotten out of the Belmont scrimmage. I really thought that Lander would get some run tonight. And so him not getting any was very surprising to me. But again, it kind of goes back to, I wonder if they just thought maybe a better defensive matchup tonight with, for example, a Trey Galloway on the floor rather than a Christian Lander. The other person I really wanted to kind of mention here as well was Rob. I really think, and I know we mentioned a little bit earlier, but if we were having like a 6th man of the game, that would be my thing. Rob was that person tonight. And I think if he can continue, he's got to shoot a little better. But I just like the way more aggressive Rob, to me, is always going to be a better Rob Finney than the kid we've seen the last couple of years.
Yeah, and the hope is just that maybe it takes him a few games to get comfortable in his new green light, this new green light situation, because he's a guy that's got some offensive skill. But, for all the talk about the new Rob, at the end of the day, like we've seen stat lines like this from him before, 3 for 11 and 1 for 5, and kind of struggling to be a consistent force offensively. So hopefully we see, better from him over the next few games as he gets comfortable in his new role. Okay, coming up, we have Assembly Call Radio on Thursday night. I do believe that will mark Ryan coming back and being ready to do his Ja'Kai Newton scouting report. I know that kind of feels like it was months ago. It was a few weeks ago. Ryan hasn't been on there to do his extensive scouting report, so he should be here for that Thursday night. And, of course, we'll get his thoughts and Andy's thoughts on this game. And then Friday night, we have Northern Illinois, who is a worse MAC team than Eastern Michigan. They're actually ranked number 326 in KenPom to start the season. Coach Tonsoni, I'm sure they're not on your bracketology radar. Do you know anything about you got to fill in the role of Andy here and give us something on Northern Illinois.
I have no clue. They're from Illinois. I have no clue. We didn't for the MAC. We look at the top 2 teams and decide who gets automatic qualifier in our preseason bid. We don't do a deep dive into the bowels of the MAC conference.
Hey,
so
I will say
it is though an opportunity to fix a lot of the things that went wrong and maybe you always look at film differently. You feel as a coach, and Coach Marlowe can talk about this. Your immediate reaction. So many times when you think you played well, then you go back and watch the film, all of a sudden, man, you didn't play well. Or like tonight when you're frustrated because the game got tight and you go back and say, you know what, we did everything right except knock down shots. So film study is so important for coaches too. We get on the air right away and we just have that immediate emotion. There could have been, when you really break this down and the coaching staff really breaks it down, they're probably going, we had 8 turnovers, 13 assists. We got the shots we wanted. They'll grade the shots and the quality of shots. And if they feel they got good quality shots and they just didn't go in, then that's really a plus. And they'll fix maybe some of the attitude, not negative attitude, just the shock and move forward. So the best thing when you struggle a little bit and have a close contest is to get back out there. And in 2 days you get back out there, and it's probably good that you're not going and playing a top 20 team right away. Because you can go back and feel better about yourself heading into St. John's next week.
Well, and I agree. I think when you go back and look at the film, I think you're going to see a lot of open shots that we didn't knock down. And that's a concern, obviously. But I think that they're going to grade – the grades are going to actually look a little better except for making the shot. I agree, like Coach said. And I totally agree. There were times when I thought we played well and went and watched the film like, wow, we got lucky. We really didn't defend very well. They just missed shots, kind of the opposite. I think that, Coach brings up a really good point about watching the film as well. You got to be, you just got to get used to looking at the film and you got to be honest with it. And that's the other thing that sometimes kids are it's hard for them to say, they don't like to be pointed out for their flaws. And I would think that the coaching staff will find a way to do that as well and try to keep them somewhat in a positive, not try to tear them down the first game.
Yeah, all that is true. And yet I think I speak for a lot of IU fans when I say I'm a little tired of these home games where the other team seems to make all these contested shots and we seem to miss all these open shots. And, that needs to start going in the other direction a little bit.
Well,
more.
And I will say this, I do know that Northern Illinois is in DeKalb. That part I do know.
They are. And interesting point about Northern Illinois. So my dad was a coach at Northern Illinois in 1981. He went there. He was there coaching under Bill Mallory and that staff. And so I was born in 1981. I was supposed to be born in DeKalb, but my mom actually didn't like how DeKalb, Illinois sounded. So she found a hospital in Sycamore for me to be born in because she thought Sycamore sounded better. So I was born in Sycamore, Illinois because of that. So I always have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart. From Northern Illinois.
I do too. I worked a couple camps up there for Rob Judson when he was the head coach at Northern Illinois. So, and then of course Rob eventually ended up on Crean staff, but I'm going to be there Friday night. I'm excited to see what the crowd's like and to see what they look like in person. So
very good. Very good. All right. Well, you're listening to the Assembly Call. Remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. Use that promo code HOME, HOME at checkout to get 15% off your first order. Gentlemen, it is time for last call, our final thoughts on the first game of the Mike Woodson era. Coach Marlowe, why don't you go first?
we got to get better at shooting the ball. And I'm not trying to just beat the same dead horse, but the other part I liked was the defense. I really liked a lot of the rotations. I liked some of the things we were doing in terms of picking up in full court, just putting a little bit of pressure. Weren't looking to create turnovers, but just try to use some shot clock. And I did like some of the things we did offensively when we had ball movement and player movement. There were just too many times in the second half where we didn't have it.
Well said, Coach Tonsoni.
Hey, a win's a win. It was not pretty by any standards offensively, but there's probably a lot more positives that you can pull out individually and collectively as the team. And it's a shock a little bit more as a fan than anything. And sometimes we as coaches can get shocked too. You feel really good about your team, and then all of a sudden the things go wrong that you didn't really expect to go wrong, and it makes the result look a little bit worse than what it maybe should be. So, after we settle down, wake up and have some breakfast tomorrow morning, Indiana's 1-0. You don't get a whole lot of style points, even in the net. You can fix this. So, we will we'll get back at it on Friday. Hey, Jay, that's just the way I was born. I was born with a resting grumpy face.
I saw that in the chat. I was already laughing before we pulled it up on the screen.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But you are right about the beverage.
Look, Indiana's 1-0. We averted disaster. If you're going to compare opening nights, this one was a heck of a lot better than the last coach's opening night.
Yes.
So there's at least progress there. But I think I can't help but walk away from it feeling like it was a major missed opportunity. I mean, there's no reason for Christian Lander and Anthony Leal and even Logan Duncombe, who you may need this season if Michael Durr isn't healthy. It's a big missed opportunity to not get them minutes. You look at this schedule, this game against a 300 level team, Friday night's game against a 300 level team. These are some of the easiest games, theoretically on your schedule. Now we'll have to see where teams end up. I think it's a missed opportunity to not get those guys minutes, so for all the stuff that we've talked about with potential positives and if they shoot better and all this stuff, I think those things are all true. But that's the negative. On the flip side, I think the positive thing to remember here is that Indiana has now played 4 games, 2 against BC Mega in the Bahamas, 1 against Belmont, and this one tonight against Eastern Michigan. And this is by far the worst of those 4 teams. And they performed much better in the other games. So I think you can look at that and you can say, okay, this team now they've gone out there 4 times. They've won every time. And in the other games, they shot better. They played better against better competition. Maybe this was an off night for all the reasons that we posited it may be. We're not going to know until we have a few more games and we can look back at it in hindsight. But I think if you want to hold on to that and go into Friday night saying, okay, we averted disaster tonight, we missed an opportunity, but let's go. We'll get back on track and have a nice, easy, breeze of a game on Friday night. I think that would be fair to expect. And that's kind of the mindset that I'm taking. Now, if they come out Friday night and struggle to put away Northern Illinois, I think it would be time to sound a few more alarms than maybe what we're ready to sound tonight. But ultimately, it's 1-0. It's not going to help your computer rankings any, but it does, get you the first win. You avert disaster, and now let's move forward, continue to get better, and hopefully play better on Friday night.
That's the thing.
All right,
real quick, I was going to say that you're up 20 and they kind of let off the gas. I would have liked to see them put the pedal to the metal and put them away. If that becomes kind of a trend, then that will be something to keep an eye on.
Yes, absolutely. Because all those trends from the last few years, we changed coaches to reverse those.
Yes.
So eventually we got to see those go in the other direction for sure. All right, folks, that is going to do it for this edition of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to join.assemblycall.com to join our free newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music that you hear on the show. Special thanks also to John Ringer of Rig Design for designing our logo, which we're going to unveil here soon, our new logo. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Thursday night. Until then,
take it from me, Yogi Ferrell. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
Here I come, Mrs. Tonsoni. I have no energy to chase Mrs. Tonsoni tonight. I was hoping for a totally different result. Here I come, Coach Fife. Nah, not even him.
Hey, I will tell you
kick back
this.
and watch Kentucky lose.
Yeah, maybe that make my night. Ohio State almost lost. I was looking at some of the things in the chat. There's a lot of teams struggling.
Those are
tonight.
better opponents, though, right?
Well, that's
Akron's
true.
a lot better than.
I don't like being compared to Cal. I know Ari put that in there.
That's true. I will say this: if you on the women's side, they said Michigan struggled with the Ooey Pooey tonight, and Michigan should be a top 10 women's team.
Yeah, I think it's a good lesson just to all of us to tamper expectations. I've been saying it, but in my heart and mind, I don't think I tampered those expectations. And, you get up 20 with 15 minutes left in the second half. Weren't we up 20 at one point? And you're like, okay, this is good. They're just going to play around. It'll end up 30, 34. And next thing you know, it's down to 2. And it just smacked everything from – all the previous years again, sitting back in my recliner, all ticked off, grumpy face. Jay calls me grumpy face, resting grumpy face. I was hoping for a little different, but
when my wife told me last night, I said, I'm kind of excited for this year. And she goes, you get excited for every season. I'm like, well, that's true. I do tend to get overhyped. Jared, interesting that you weren't born in DeKalb.
I was not. That was my mom's decision. So Sycamore it was. All right. Well, fortunately, my computer seems to have made it through, but now my video is getting all messed up. So I'm getting a new computer tomorrow.
Who is the computer genius who can help me configure my computer to accept a hardwire Ethernet line? My son's computer accepted it right away.
Usually, you should just plug it in.
I know, but it didn't.
Plug it in.
Yeah, I don't know because I've got a Mac, so I don't know. I
got a MacBook Air, and I plugged it in, and it didn't. I thought maybe I got a bad cord or something.
Did you try a different cord?
Well, I only got one that'll reach. I bought a new cord, a 100-foot cord.
All right. Well, if anybody has, did you go into your network settings in system preferences? There's a network option, and then
and it's supposed to. I Googled it all, kind of watching the game and Googling it at the same time, and they're supposed to pop up an Ethernet option, and then you hit it, and then you got to go configure it, but that never popped up.
Sally is showing the confidence she has in you. Did you plug in both ends?
Man, Sally, you are so cool. You are really cool. Oh, my goodness. Yes, I did, Sally, but thank you for asking. I checked it like 5 times. Sally with the line of the night.
Yeah.
That's funny stuff.
Love her.
All right. Well, if you can help Coach with his technical know-how, if you know, if you can help him figure out how to get his.
How do I get a hold of Indiana? Indiana
U Hoops. I don't know. Send him your email address. Was it Sony 40? Well,
yeah. Here's I'm gonna put it in here. You guys spam me. I'm gonna be mad. Hold on.
No, and he says he's in Lafayette.
Look at that.
Oh, beer and wiring. I like this idea.
Okay, it's Glenn. It's Glenn in the community. Did you put your email? Oh, there's your email address.
There's my email.
So there, Glenn in the community has got your back, Coach.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is I get choppy Wi-Fi, and so I got a 100-foot Ethernet cord and an adapter to the MacBook Air because it doesn't have an Ethernet port, and I was just expecting to plug it in and go hit something.
So maybe there's an issue with your adapter then.
But the adapter worked for a PC laptop. I checked. That's what I checked. My son's computer. So,
all right.
Well, that's part of my grumpy face too. I was really ticked because I just
my space is away from my box, so I don't have really any way to plug right in.
All right. Well, hopefully Glenn can help. But thanks everybody for being here.
Yep.
Nice to. This was the first show of our 11th season, which is awesome. Thank you guys all for being here tonight, for all your support over the years. Excited to walk into this new Mike Woodson era with you, and hopefully we have many more better shooting nights in our future.
It'll get better.
Than what we saw tonight.
I'm gonna be positive.
I think we will. All right,
Good
y'all.
night, everyone.
Have a good night.
Night, everybody.
Talk to y'all on Thursday. See you guys inside the community.